Okay.
Welcome to This Time in History, guys. This is supposed to be a ward debate for Ward 24 Scarborough Guildwood. This is This Time in History, the podcast. I'm Matthew. With me, as always, is my co-host, my partner in crime, Ebony.
Hello.
And obviously, this is not a debate. We only have one candidate here, but we're going to give her the floor. We're going to interview her, and we're going to hear what she thinks about Scarborough Guildwood and everything that goes along with it, and what she thinks it takes to be a city councillor, to show up, to be accessible for your constituents. Welcome, Habiba Desai. I'm so sorry. I always butcher the names. I apologize. Welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a bit about your background a little bit, and then ultimately answer the questions for the audience. Why are you running? Why this election? And why now? Go ahead.
Okay, sure. So my name is Habiba Desai. I am Gujarati Indian from the Gujarati community that lives in the area of Markham and Lawrence. Both my parents are from Scarborough. I was raised in Toronto, Danforth. My entire family, that includes over 100 people, live in the Ward 24 Scarborough Guildwood. So when I open up my voters list, it's my family members. So to me, this isn't just about representing the residents of the area. It's also about fighting for my family and my community and ensuring that my cousins have the same opportunities that I did living in Toronto. And so when we talk about just sound like that's just one side of it. I just gonna, instead of going really long, I just kind of wrote out a little blurb about myself. So Habiba is an insightful, independent, analytical mind with a strong track record of applying sound political and strategic judgment in complex situations. She has a high-level experience working with international organizations and in multicultural teams focused on climate change, sustainable development, and human rights. She has familiarity and comfort working with government officials, academics, and research organizations, and leaders from the private sector. Her greatest ability is to collaborate effectively with a global team and work in conjunction with a multicultural range of local and international partners. And so my specialty is international development studies and development economics. And I studied that at University of Toronto, Scarborough campus. And in my 5th year, I did a thesis with Albert Berry, who's a Canadian economist, and I did that downtown at the Monk School. So I have a lot of theoretical and practical knowledge about development, and specifically when it comes to working with diverse communities and issues that are, like in Scarborough, for example, we have issues that some parts of Toronto don't necessarily, it's not as, it's called concentrated, that's the word. So there are problems all over the city, but within Scarborough, they're concentrated. And then there's a lot of factors that deal with that. And then you can use COVID as a very good example of actually understanding how poverty, unemployment, high density housing, all can create certain factors that, have public health issues. Yeah.
I love that. I'd love to hear about some of these concentrated issues, and if that's the reason that you wanted to run.
The real, like people, to be real, like I prefer to be real. Like as a politician, people have asked me stop being so honest, but really my grandmother died at Markham and Lawrence in 2020 November of COVID-19.
I'm sorry.
I thought it is very sad. I personally do not think that it should be considered natural in any way. I think it is, my grandma should be alive right now and she's not. And then this person has died. And then you look into the further. So I looked really deep into it. Why exactly was this allowed when my grandmother never left her bed? She was bedridden. Okay. She never left and went outside. So what occurred in the community that has now resulted in so many of our elderly and our grandparents passing away before their time, right? And then I go really deep into it. Like there is, and then it's like, do you want to be so real? And yeah, like, okay, so let me just be straight up, okay? For the last 16 years, Scarborough has not changed, but further, it's like, there's this conspiracy theory that like Jewish people or the system wants to keep Scarborough poor, the people of Scarborough poor because they're colored people. This entire theory is just, It's garbage. The reality is you've had the same city councilor in Ward 24 for the last 16 years, next door for the last 19 years, below, I'm not exactly sure how many years, but the reality is that the incumbents in my riding specifically are profiting and benefiting off of these types of conspiracy theories. So instead of people realizing that, it's your city councilor that does nothing for you to get resources to your area, that's actually underdeveloping you and keeping you from growing, they keep trying to like blame it on the system. And then they have city councilors that validate those ideas. So then when you have these types of ingrained issues and then you get COVID-19, yeah, people, first of all, right away when COVID-19 comes, maybe they're not going to be so quick to believe it. Because for the last 16 years, with their own belief system of where they've been living and their lived experience, nothing good has been done for them, nothing to help them through all these problems. And all of a sudden now there's a vaccine. So how do you expect people to trust the system at that point? So I do think that those problems, they were occurring, but it actually helped to lead to the death of my grandmother. Now, I cannot go and prove it point by point and sue certain people, but I can stand up at this point and say innocent people are dying. And that's just one example. And the gun violence and the 15-year-old young boy that died in 2020 of February, then Paul, like there were certain things I looked at before I decided to run. Okay. And then Paul Ansley, he said he doesn't know what to do. If you don't know what to do about gun violence when an innocent child has died, please step down. Do not run again. Do not step up for the community. You don't know what to do. So stand aside. And from 2021, I've been fighting for a Khabib fight school. Now, all my cousins, when I told them in 2021 that I'm going to get Khabib to come to Toronto, everyone's like, you're talking, at SHIT. Okay. I don't know if I can swear, but, and now guess what? Khabib just 2 days ago was his first day launching his performance club out of GTA Sportsplex in Vaughan. Okay, so in less than a year, I have kept my promise of bringing Khabib to Toronto. Now to go further, I want to give him a permanent facility. So that old Gordon High School that's been sitting dormant there, the city of Toronto is about to get ownership of that at the end of the year from the Ontario government because they made a deal to do a property swap. Okay, where Paul Ansley, he keeps talking about a job skill center since last election. This is not necessary. We have job skill centers. We have high schools, we have colleges, we have universities, we have so many. Our young people are not just laborers, okay? We are human beings. Our young people also need other facilities and resources. So in terms of arts and in terms of, yes, a fight school, these are actual things that Borden can have so that the arts and culture of Scarborough, and there's so many young people already, and they've become elders now. They've become leaders in their community that can take charge in these situations. And I go a little bit further just to add, that property would be a public-private partnership where the private would be the community that would now have joint ownership. So the young men, instead of just paying gym memberships, now they would be paying memberships to the Khabib Fight School. But in the end, at the end of the year, you're shareholders. You're getting profits off of what's occurring in that school. So now let's just say we even send out one fighter to MMA to make, $1 million contracts, $2 million contracts. This is actual money that can come in where what I call it is we're champions. Scarborough is filled with champions, not gangsters, not poverty. We are champions. We are some of the richest people in the world. When we look at it instead of relative to the city, if you look at the population of Toronto relative to the population of the world, you have the elite of the world in this city. If you're able to harness that power and that human capital, we can be, emerging economies, they're growing faster than Canada. So the reality is Scarborough, the economy of Scarborough alone can go faster than the rest of Toronto and the rest of Canada. So these things can happen, they will happen. And is Paul Ansley making it happen? No. Are the other councillors even thinking about this? No, after, you know what they call it? They call them cushioned. Like after a while, it's innovation requires a certain level of grit. It requires a certain level of ambition. But after 16 years in office, you're not going to start thinking like this, that, okay, we got to take a further, like a fight school, like all of these things, like, I don't want to even say they're innovative, like they're basic necessities that are required. Like I need an outlet for anger because there's so much poverty. There is so much hunger. There is so much, just the education system and an education system in Toronto versus the education system in Scarborough. There are just so many things going on. I cannot deal with all of those, but they are breeding anger. So what I say is before a child shoots a gun, they're angry. They don't shoot the gun and then they get angry. So I can't deal with the gun violence. I might not even be able to deal with the poverty right away, but every single day I'm going to be able to make sure that that anger has an outlet, a healthy outlet, surrounded by young, leaders young men look up to. I don't expect them to listen to me. I do expect them to listen to Khabib. I do expect them to listen to fighters in their community. I do. And I know they will. I know they will. Yeah, people, at the end of the day, young people need guidance. They don't need rappers to guide them. They need young, Khabib. has a story. Like there are certain boxers and fighters, they have stories of overcoming challenges, of overcoming racism, of overcoming systemic discrimination, and how they were able to do it and still keep their faith. So yeah, I'm gonna stop and let you go on to your next question.
I just want
Yeah,
to
I'm running because I care.
I just want to say that your passion comes off the screen. I'm blown away.
Okay.
And you're
Okay,
right. You're right.
okay.
Career politicians don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to get off the, forgive my language, the government teat. They don't want to do that. So they're not going to rock the boat. We need fresh faces, fresh bodies, new blood, and we need fresh ideas at City Hall across the board. You know, I keep raving. I apologize. This is about you, but I keep raving about a candidate in Ward 6 who we just did an interview with, or sorry, I did an interview with her, but we just did the debate. And she is the youngest candidate in the entire race. She's 19 years old. That's an example of the type of people we need, because young people are the future, like yourself. I'm excited.
What's her name?
Her name's Hope. Sorry, Hope Shire.
Hope Shire.
I'm excited for the future of Scarborough. I feel your passion. I got questions for you. If I love. Sorry, go ahead, Ebony.
Hope Schreier. I think that's Schreier.
I know she schooled me. It's actually pronounced Shire, but Habiba, I'd love to ask you about the budget at City Hall. You know, I'm getting conflicting reports. You know, I've been told the city's bleeding money. I've been told Toronto has the money. It's about the mismanagement. So I've been told both things. And, you know, I don't have to tell you, I'm pretty sure you're well versed. We have a $1.6 billion backlog in TCHC funding. The TTC is going to be $500 million short, according to their numbers, but not enough that Mr. CEO doesn't get a 21% increase. And I've got tons of other examples, but we'll use these ones. And I'm just wondering, you know, what's the problem here? Is it mismanagement, or are we bleeding money? I know important decisions have to be made this next term. I'm wondering what you see for if it's ward specific to Scarborough Guildwood, or as a whole, the city of Toronto. What do you see in terms of the budget for the next term of council?
Okay. So I didn't do a deep analysis into the budget, but I went through it. And so one of the biggest problems I found was their investment income. So if you look at it, they're working in the like, I don't know the full budget, but it's in the very high billions of dollars. Okay. And then the investment income doesn't even reach $1 billion. So the reality is you're taking annually billions of dollars from taxpayers. If I'm taking, it was just in revenue from property tax, it was $5 billion. So if I'm taking $5 billion in revenue from taxpayers, I should be able to double that and give them something that's 10 billion in return. Okay. And so if you're not, and maybe not in the first year, but after 4 years, after 10 years, after 16 years, hello, people, there should be no reason why anyone is paying taxes anymore. Our city, the reality is the investment income, we could be making so much money. Like there is so, when we talk about like development, growth, everything, that is profit. Right? And then that profit can be the city's profit. So like even the TTC, I talked about it a little bit in one of my platforms. You can turn it into a social media platform, like a social digital platform. So all the advertising revenue, not just getting advertising from just like the banners that are within the TTC, but we have millions of users. Like you can put them onto a digital platform and all of a sudden it's a free platform and all they have to do is the app is what allows you to travel for free. Everyone will download the app. All of a sudden now you get so much more marketing and advertising revenue, which Facebook is doing, which Twitter is doing. Why can't the TTC do it? So there are so many investment models that can be put, like what I talked about even with the membership for the gym, right? This is actually what it allows us to do, is that we get startup capital without having to go to the bank to get a loan, okay? To be able to purchase the property from the city, etc. So there are different models of doing business, raising revenue that have nothing to do with taxes. And so my biggest issue with the budget is, why is the city not making more money off of their investments, or why is it that they're not turning so many of their expenses into self-sustaining models? Like, even when I was looking into the, it gets okay for me. Like, right away I told myself, Habiba, because when you go deep into the budgets, nothing makes sense. Okay, like everything is just, when you say, is it overspending? No, things that, like, an apple costs $1 for the city costs $4. Why? So that obviously, and when I'm dealing with international development, I've dealt with, like, the history of developing countries. And when you deal with developing countries and why, they're getting so much money from the, like, they'll get money from the World Bank, they'll get money from the IMF, and then where does it go? Why doesn't it work for the community, etc.? And then there's this term that comes in that this election, I said, Habiba, once you get elected, then we're going to deal with it. But before that, there's no reason to talk about corruption. Okay. But when you ask this question, the honest answer is the only reason that we are facing these problems is because there's, like, built-in corruption. And then, it's a sickness, like, a cavity, like, you actually have to clean the cavity, or it gets to, like, the root. Right? So within the city, the corruption has not been cleaned up to the point now where it's systemic. And to speak about it would just literally, like, it's not like it's going to get me, like, we're not in a city where you'll get killed for speaking about it, but you'll definitely, like, get blocked out, in many platforms, in many ways. And do I want, like, right now, I'm not saying that I'm endorsing Mayor Tory, but at the same time, I do understand that Mayor Tory is looking most likely to win his seat regardless of whatever scandal comes, because the media is not giving the attention that it requires to the other candidates, or even doing the debates that are required to really put that public opinion that we need. Like, it's like someone in their heart, they feel like, oh, I want another mayor, but are they going to go vote for that other mayor? Or are they going to even believe that other mayor will win? So in that case, all I'm trying to say is, in order to even work with Mayor Tory, I can't be saying, hey, Mayor Tory, you're leading a corrupt government. It's just not going to work out. So that's where I'm saying that, okay, there's systemic problems. We don't know who's to blame for it. But cutting, like, just saying I'm going to cut taxes, that's not the answer. No, I'm going to help them. I'm going to help the city make more money, and in a way that, like, even our employees, I talked about this, instead of city employees thinking about ways to, I'm not, let's just put it like this. A lot of city employees, when we talk about public-private partnerships and investing to make revenue for the city, some of the workers that work for the city, they know how to do it more efficiently. They actually know how to take that same amount of money and get it done for, like, 100 houses instead of 20 houses. So, and it's just a matter of not allowing them to be city workers anymore, investing interest-free money in their businesses to allow them to start providing those services for us as a city, but through a business model. So there are ways. And then you're going to say, who do you determine? Well, there are ways to determine who's been working for the city for the last 20 years because they're actually really good at their job. It's not they just got their job, but they're actually really good at it. Yeah, they deserve to be invested in. And they're going to do a way better job working with the city and working with our residents than just a random, business that I just bring in. Okay, so there are, like, levels of intelligence that the community does have. So that's why I don't want to isolate anyone by using this word corruption. I just want to say these are the way things have been done. They don't need to keep going like this. Call it a doctor, call it healing, call it cleaning it up, whatever you want to call it. The reality is that what's been happening is causing way too much pain. And it's just got to stop. And there are ways to stop it. And like I said, making money, and even in poverty, if you want to get, if you want to stop crime from happening in certain communities, it's not because people are just so willing to just go as a criminal career. There are other factors at play that lead to those activities. And then if we had those things mitigated for it, and not necessary that it will lead to corruption. So same idea. It doesn't mean that the city will always be having these problems. We would hope they don't. But right now it's just investment, just straight up investment. Like I said, with the TTC, with the Khabib Fight School. And I even have another one for tutoring. Like, even tutoring, we can provide citywide tutoring. Right now I'm going to do it in my ward for free. After school tutoring from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., we can do it for free. And you know how? Using the high schoolers from grade 9 to grade 12 to participate 2 hours a week for their 4 years in high school, providing them with scholarships, access to scholarships, a certain level of reference letters that are actually going to get them to Harvard and get them the kind of scholarships they're looking for. So there are ways to like cutting.
I just want to I love that idea, but I want to piggyback off of it. So if this tutoring program, if you were able to establish it as a not-for-profit, you could sign off on the high school students' hours that are a requirement.
Yep.
and it's more of an incentive. I just wanted to, I'm not sure if you are aware of that, but if you establish yourself as a not-for-profit, you can do that. And it's legal. You're not breaking any laws because they're actually doing the work, and everybody wins. You know, that's how I established. I have a not-for-profit myself to deal with the serious lack of mental health therapy, the lack of free, because mental health therapy should be free. When I was a kid, I grew up poor. I'll make no bones about that. I'm not going to hide. I'm not going to lie. I grew up poor in Toronto community housing. And I was seeing a therapist when I was 11 years old. I remember it clearly, 10, 11. We were poor, so I know we weren't paying for no therapist. I know it was covered. At some point, they took it away. It needs to be restored. And until then, I established the not-for-profit. We're in a funding stage right now, and we're hoping to get this model together. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about you.
Okay.
I'm
No, hold on.
interested.
Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
There's a grant that I was looking in for the community specifically. It's a public health grant, which mental health issues would be available for. So one benefit about my experience is that because I do get money for developing countries and countries operating out of developing countries, I'm also, and those are international grants. Some of those grants are also available to developed countries in areas that are very at risk. So Scarborough is actually eligible for a lot of money that developing countries are also eligible from the UN, from the World Bank, even from Canadian government. So I was just gonna find the grant, which is, hold on.
If you want to send me that info, I'd love to take a look at it.
Yeah, exactly. So hold on. I'm gonna put a note for it and then I can send it to you after so I don't cut into
Perfect.
our.
Okay,
I'm gonna send you a link for it, and then if you need help to apply for it, I'm gonna help you apply for it, because what you're saying with the mental health, if it's not covered and we're not providing that, that's exactly what I mean by anger outlet, right? Like that's why I even have to talk about something like an anger outlet with a fight school, because the mental health services were not even there in the first place.
Exactly.
So mental health should come first before even the fight school.
So what am I trying to say? The thing that I developed, that I came up with, is establishing this not-for-profit, more of a facility, I guess, one that anybody can come and get mental health therapy, regardless of income, age, race, sex, religion, and any other qualifying or disqualifying factor. It does not matter who you are. If you need help, we're here. And the way to do that is hiring a doctor to oversee the program. Medical students who need hours to become a doctor, they need a certain number of patient care hours. So the doctor gets paid, the medical students get their hours fulfilled, and the clients get therapy. Everybody wins.
Yep. Okay, and I'll go a little further. So that board and complex, why can't we, and then we're going to do construction to it to make it very beautiful. Like I call it a state-of-the-art facility, because you want, your mind to also be freshened up when you're going to get those services. You don't want to be going in like a really broken down building and then you leave your freshened up mind and then you go outside and there's just garbage everywhere, So that state-of-the-art facility with those other resources that help play in with the activeness, like the swimming pool, etc. So wait, hold on. So to this, what if we were able to give you a spot at the boarding school itself? Because then the young people, instead of like them feeling like they're even going to a doctor's office, you're going to the complex. It's we have multi-services. Just walk in the room for this. You're going to walk in this other room for a massage. And it just kind of creates it like it's,
I love
there's
that.
there's no stigma associated with it anymore.
I love that,
it's
because
just part of our wellness.
Because eventually I would have added a soup kitchen to help the unhoused people, and I would also have free legal advice, again, available to anybody.
Okay, so for the kitchen, I already came up with it. So at that boarding complex, we have a community kitchen, right? And then a lot of women in the community, like South Asian women, they want to exercise, but they don't feel comfortable walking outside in the community and people are watching them, etc. And it's a community, it's a cultural, you want to respect their cultural values. Okay. So they're asking for all women's gym, but also affordable and also in their community. So what I told them is I will give them that all women's gym and they want it to be affordable. And I told them if they volunteer 1 hour at the community kitchen, because they know how to cook really well. And we're going to have some of the best food. Okay. Not even just a soup kitchen. Every day we can have something new.
No, it's
okay?
just no. I only called it a soup kitchen because I don't know what else to call it. But yeah, a full functioning kitchen. Yeah.
Full-fledged community soup kitchen, community kitchen with the like Scarborough is known for the best food. So our food that we're making for any child, what I said is anyone under the age of 18, when you come to that gym, you're gonna get free food. Okay. There's no reason for any child in my community to ever go hungry. You don't need to tell me like you don't need to come and say my family's poor and I need the food. You're coming to the gym, we have food for you. And who cooks it? These ladies who want to use the gym. So you put in 1 hour at the community kitchen. You get 1 hour membership at the gym. Same idea with the young guys after the age of 15. Yeah, you got to put in an hour of community service and it can be multiple things, including the tutoring. It can be, just doing community walks. Like I thought about it. Sometimes when the guys, they go for runs, like, they come work out together. So instead of so let's just say they want 1 hour at the gym, Khabib gym facility. All right, you know what? Two guys together, half hour, just do a run in the community. And that increased personnel in the community of young people that are well-wishers for the community members. And your job is, you're just making sure that there's no one stealing anything from cars, going into people's porches, and you're just doing a run to, just putting people on the streets. And then we can have, when there's a high risk area, for example, that doesn't mean apartment building areas. I mean, areas where there's a lot of thieving happening, a lot of theft happening, robberies happening, then that's those areas is where we're going to send our young men to go for more runs, right? So we're going to have somebody coming for a run at 7 in the morning. We're going to have somebody coming for a run at 7 at night, someone at 9 o'clock. And then you have different schedules. And again, same way, if you cannot afford or you cannot pay for the membership, we have ways that you can contribute to your community to still be a part of the gym. And so as you can see, and then the food, just to go a little further, that food it won't be super expensive. So we can also be able to sell it to make revenue from it, put it on Uber Eats, and have so people, instead of just ordering McDonald's this time, you can order from our Khabib gym. You're going to get a $15 meal. It's going to be delicious. It's going to be home cooked. And so we're also making a revenue that's going to help to keep our ingredients super healthy. We're not only relying on food banks. And I worked with Global Medic now for over 5 years.
Here's the kicker.
Okay.
The facility that I talked about would be completely dependent on only private donations, no government funding whatsoever.
Okay.
That's the plan anyway.
Okay. So no, that's okay. That's okay. So what we can do, for the doctor, for example, you would, even if you don't want government funding, you should still I'm not going to say okay, I understand what you're saying on the private donations, but if you did get other donations, to cover the cost of the doctor, for example, there's another community organization that's sending out doctors, it's called Inner City. There's a network of professionals already, doctors that work with inner city communities, and they send out their professionals, like nurses and doctors, to different areas. So we might not have, I like the idea of having one full-time doctor for our community already paid off from the Khabib Center. It'll be the Khabib, okay. So your facility, it'll be like Khabib Center will have one on-site doctor. That on-site doctor will work specifically with the clinic, but if we ever have any emergencies at the fight school, they're on-site.
I like it.
There can be a kind of and then now you can get that additional funding for that on-site medical emergency personnel, and we can give it to your facility to help fund it as well.
I like that.
Yeah, but and then this is all you see how we're now creating solutions for the community that are required, necessary, don't exist, and can be there very easily without us. And this, I'm so excited. I'm very optimistic person, right? I know he's an incumbent. I've been told by Progress Toronto, I'm a very progressive candidate. I've always been extremely progressive. I ran as president of University of Toronto Scarborough campus, and I'm the first one who ran with a full slate of 20 people. So I put together an entire team. I'm running for president, an entire team of 20 students that are running for their different English department, different areas as well, vice presidents. And then what we were able to do, I was able to open up all the closed off group rooms. Before, they used to just stay closed if the groups were not renting them out. I made them open all of those up so that they're study spaces. They're just and I call them student spaces, because before, all the commuters that went to University of Toronto Scarborough campus, they had no space to sit. Either you're sitting in a hallway, you're sitting in old classrooms, or you're sitting in the library. So I actually opened that up, and then I went further and I made them add a hot water machine, free hot water machine in the student center that's 24/7, so that at nighttime you can make your own coffee, your own tea, because everything's closed. And at the time, like, there was not even any food places that were open. So if you're studying late and you didn't bring any food, you are going hungry that night. So then at least you can make noodles, and just like super basic, but like for a student, like that's a meal. Okay. And so I've done these things that are very low cost or free, and they just change the lifestyle and the culture of the place completely, and just provided these basic amenities. So all I'm saying is, even in small and helpful ways, whatever I can do, I'm going to be doing it. And so, yeah, but
That sounds
like right now, like I want to work with you, like this board in high school, if it becomes a job skill center, like this is the most like horrible use of resources in Scarborough. So like when Paul Ansley even says things like this, honestly, it really hurts me. It's this type of British colonial mindset that he has. And I like when we talk about development, like in developing countries, there's this like white savior complex. There's so many things going on in this writing of Ward 24. When you see how he deals with the community, like I went to the town hall meeting. There was a town hall meeting about Markham and Lawrence shooting, and which is a very sad, very sad. I just want to say I'm very sorry for the young men that have been shot. And I know, like, even them, like I've talked to a few of them, and like, okay, when the shooting happened on Toronto Danforth, horrible, 2 young girls have died. Something needs to be done. And that's why we talked about the Khabib Fight School, because I worked at the youth center in Thorncliffe. Like I worked at the youth center for 5 years. I know youth centers are not enough. Like you don't just want the youth to gather there. You need to have an outlet for them and young men, they don't want to do arts and crafts. They don't. They're going to think, what is this? And they're going to walk out of there. So you need an outlet to be able to, and then like, there's a photographer named Sid. I can't remember his last name right now. Okay. He did this thing called Scarborough Made, and then he did portraits of Scarborough residents. And like, so there are very cool Scarborough artists that are using different forms of art to engage young people. And then that can be part of the Khabib Fight School. But all I'm saying is, the shooting there, the amount of money that was raised by Toronto Strong, Toronto community, and then when the mass shooting happened in Scarborough, and like no attention was put to it in the way of, it was a mass shooting, it was an attack on innocent people, and the story was just completely flipped that the young man was also from the community. It just kind of turned it into it was actually the city. I don't know if it's the chief or the sergeant. He said it was a targeted attack. It wasn't like they were not targeted because they were Muslim, they said like there was an actual like motive behind it. But then when you speak at the town hall, the community, they were so offended. And I didn't know, I just heard what the news had told me. So I didn't know. They were just so offended that the news had flipped the story. And then they're like, oh, and then Mitzi Hunter, she came forward and she said, oh, I was there. And they just did that so the community wouldn't fear that the Muslims were being shot at. But the Muslims did get shot at, 5 of them. And it's not to say fear that Muslims are getting shot at in the city, but if you're saying that it wasn't, a hate motivated attack at the Muslim community, but you have no other motives for the attack, then how can you say it wasn't hate motivated? You don't even know the motive, right? Like give me the motive first before you decide that. So like just on that level of, I all I can say is, even when bad things happen in Scarborough, they're not even, they get played off. Like right now, what happened with Michael Thompson yesterday, like today, the story, like if you look at CP24, it's just completely, the story's like, it's over. It's already old news. And if it was another area, there would be like protests for this person to step down from city councilor already. So there's just this type of tolerance. That's what I call it. There's a tolerance for bad behavior in Scarborough, and they try to blame it on the residents of Scarborough, when the residents of Scarborough are some of the most honest and noble people there are in this city.
But the incident you're referring to, that didn't even happen in Toronto. It happened in Bracebridge, because he was arrested.
Yesterday.
He was arrested by the Bracebridge OPP. Ebony, I want to bring you into this. We kind of went off on some stuff, and I'd love to hear what you have to say.
My
Yeah.
baby woke up. So Vincent, I'm joined by my son. He's here at my feet, being pretty quiet. We've been listening, and oh my God, girl, holy crap. I hope you take Trudeau for his job one day. Just keep going. Don't stop. Because I would love to see what the world could be in this utopia you described. But the thing that catches me is what you said is how many small things that like don't even cost a lot that could have been done already. Like, yeah, it really does make you wonder if it's not kind of contrived. So I hope you get in there and bust out all the cobwebs, start it all fresh, open these windows. Cause yeah, what you're popping off is so fresh, but so fundamentally like sound, like just kind of like a aha moment. Like, why hasn't it been done already? The way you're talking about this gym, trading volunteer hours for being able to, I would do that. And you know what? If it had a nursery, like you could donate your time to the nursery care center, you know, so that other women could take their time out to go do the gym. I need that.
Also,
Yes,
Actually-
yes, I didn't
actually-
even have that.
actually-
we are putting something together right now.
actually,
like,
also,
yes,
if you get certified, you can have college ECE students do their work there. It's possible.
See,
and isn't that a job skill center in itself, people? Come on. And Ebony, and I have this nursery, I'm gonna call it the Ebony Nursery. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is it. Like, this is how we put together, because Borden is a big complex, okay? This is how we put together an actual project that's fundable. And this is exactly how it gets done. And it's gonna happen. Like me, I've been promising the Khabib Fight School since last year. I'm not stopping. So like I only promise things that I know I can get done as well. So you know when you say sound, yeah, like I've been everything. When we work in development, we look at all the reasons why things are not working first, and then we try to overcome them. And then when we're trying to overcome them, we try to use solutions that are meaningful to the community. So that you have to do, it's called inclusive growth. Like it's very, like you bring in lots of components to it. And then even like the facility itself, when we do the construction of it, that is when we bring in the indigenous communities, okay? Especially in Scarborough, and even the building, like the style of it, the materials we use. These are all now, this is where the indigenous community comes in because it is their land. Okay. And then this is what you want your land. What is it on your facilities? How do you want it to appear? What kind of, and then that's where that, you know, it's like, I don't even want to, I call it indigenous infrastructure. Okay. So when you take back land, it's not just like, okay, all of us are saying, yes, this is their land, this is treaty, et cetera, et cetera. There is this level of, I don't want to see British buildings anymore in my city. And if you're going to leave one or two, let it be. But beyond this, no. Let me see the like, and this is where now indigenous young people, yeah, you're not just giving them their art is being taken to an architectural level. You understand? You're hire it up.
You're speaking to Ebony's heart right now.
I'm loving it. Every single debate, I keep asking people about urban design, right? How could it give back to the community? How could it detract from crime? How could we build new communities so that it brings people together rather than divides, separates? Like I hate laneways. We'll talk about that later. But I love the idea of making it more urban, like not urban, but like indigenous, right? Like how community have flourished if it hadn't been interrupted. You know, the way that the buildings kind of interact with the landscape, the way that they interact with the wildlife, the way that they don't interfere so much as they give way to and enhance the natural aspects of the environment around it. And I love hearing that. I'm all for more green spaces. You know what? I love hobbit houses. I love tiny houses. I love houses that have sustainable solar panels. I really want to hear more. Like, I would love to have you on an interview, and I want to be here, a fly on the wall. I want to hear in full depth your opinion on so many matters. But I digress. Keep going. I'm making notes here. This is great.
Actually, Habiba, so after the election is over, I'm going to be starting a secondary podcast specifically focused on municipal politics, predicated especially if, and unfortunately, if John Tory is able to stay in the mayor's chair, we are going to be on him every week for his entire term. And municipal politics as a whole, I'd love to have you on that show as well. You know, this specific show, this time in history, is going to be, we're going to be doing interviews interviews of all kinds. So I'd love to have you on as well. We do cover some history and some true crime as well, but we're not going to shy away from the interviews. That's a thing that really grew steam in the spring. Well, maybe the tail end of winter. My former co-host, he got really sick, and he was unable to participate. So there was a period of time where it was just me, and I was like, well, nobody really wants to hear me talk to myself, so I'm going to do interview style. And then so that carried me in, and then the election started, so I was like, okay, we're going to do the election, I can get to talk to other people. And now that's just something that is ingrained, and now I want to keep that as part of the podcast.
Okay.
But I would be remiss if we're talking about Scarborough and we didn't talk about transit. I'd love to hear your thoughts about transit. I know as a Scarbarian, I think is the term, you must be angry about the transit. I'm angry for you. You guys should have more in terms of subway than you do, more transit overall. And I'd love to hear anything you want to say on the topic of transit.
Okay, so for transit, one of my biggest platforms is women-only TTC subway compartment, okay? So a lot of large cities in the world, they already have women-only compartments. So even when I travel on the TTC, I sit at the front of the TTC subway because that's where the conductor is, okay? And it's just safer. So what I'm saying is in every single TTC subway, the first compartment, we're gonna paint it pink or put a pink stripe, and that's gonna be a women-only compartment. Or people who also identify as women, okay? Women only, and women who also identify as you understand. I don't want to say the wrong terms.
No.
But I'm not trying to exclude.
No.
I'm saying female and women.
I understand what you're saying.
People who identify with sex being, so including transgenders, all sorts of gender, inclusivity, safety of people who are female. Yes. I think this is great. In Korea, they already have like the pregnancy chairs. I like the idea of taking it a whole step further to an entire car. But what's interesting about they've got a pin program. So like they've got like a little chip in it. So when a woman who's carrying a pin, who will self-identify as being pregnant, right, walks on the train, the chair lights up and her pin lights up, and it's like, so you can't even ignore it, because people be like, I don't see your pregnant belly. And I know you see my pregnant belly in your face. So like an audible, like, and a visual cue kind of embarrasses people to do the right thing.
Yes.
But I love the fact that they would just have an entire car for women. But yes, I think that having people visible accountability, the way that if you are carrying a disability, a device visually, someone can see you. But I might have a disability that I don't have an outward device for, and I'd still like to be able to, have a seat. So I think that's really inclusive. I think that there should be more of that.
Thank you. So that's good. So that's my first one, is like, even when you're getting on the TTC, when, like, for me, I don't like when random people start, like, I have a bubble. I don't like when people come in my bubble, but worse is when people purposefully come in my bubble to touch me. Oh boy, I have problems. And then if I'm on the subway and I feel someone's getting closer, like, this is what they do. When you're on the pole, like, I'll be holding the pole, right? And then the guy will come and I'll try to put his hand like this to touch my hand. And okay, I know someone might think it's just like a little touch. No, like, put your hand over here. Don't put it here. Like, don't do that to me. And then I have to move my hand. Now I'm uncomfortable. Now I'm stuck on the subway. I get so upset. Like, I've gotten off stops, waited to now for another subway. Sometimes at Young and Bloor, when this has happened to me and there's so many people and I get into a kind of anxiety panic mode, I have to leave the station. Okay. And when I didn't have a Metro Pass, that is losing money on my transit fare. So these things have actually happened to me. And where like at 9 o'clock at night, I don't like going in the subway anymore, because, when I'm alone, and when the subway car is kind of empty, and then there's like, they notice you're sitting by yourself and they just have to walk over to your side of it. Oh boy, now I'm even more scared. Now, do I get up and walk away so now they know I'm scared? Like, do I just pretend? And then when they come trying to sit near me and talk to me, okay, I'm a friendly person. I'm super friendly. But when I'm traveling and I'm alone at nighttime, I am not trying to be friendly to anybody. Okay, leave me alone. So it's this. I actually made a TikTok with this like song. It's like leave me alone, leave me alone. And that's how I feel on the subway. So at least in that women only compartment, I know at 9 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, I know I can go in that women only compartment and feel safe. And it's very easy to actually watch it. One, if we need to put security guard, we would, but I don't think we would because the conductor, he sits right there. So if he sees a male, he can make a little announcement. Excuse me, sir, can you just walk over to the next compartment? If he doesn't need to push the train forward, right? Because you don't want to be between stations and you're in a kind of an unsafe situation with a male and I'm right now I'm only talking about male and female. I'm not even talking about the male on male or the female on female. You're talking about male and female situations. I don't want to be in a place where I can't exit the subway, like a plane where I'm stuck. I don't want to be in that place where I have to press an emergency button. Where am I going to run to if I have to run on the tracks? Like, where am I going? So that's where I think that the conductor, he would not even be able to push forward. And this city is growing. This city is getting bigger and bigger. Population is rising. And further, we in Toronto, like, he talks about, like, before people used to get up for elderly and pregnant women in Toronto. They used to on the bus. They always did. It was kind of taboo not to, But now, if you even go I live by a hospital. If you get on the bus by the hospital, elderly people, I have to actually ask people, excuse me, can you get up? They'll look at me and they'll ignore me. Like, it's not even like I'll call it out and there's nothing you can do about it. And then, either you have to go tell the bus driver that this is an accessibility seat. Can you do something about it? Or the bus driver himself will care and say something. But so that culture is already, it's disappeared. So we're not going to count.
Yeah. I have a double stroller and I would see the bus approaching along Weston or one of these busy routes. And I know the bus is probably full. The bus is full. The bus driver avoids eye contact with me entirely because he would rather not pick me up than try and tell people, can you move, put up the accessible seats, I have a stroller coming. He doesn't want to deal with it. I've ended up waiting 3-4 buses and just being like, I'm not making this appointment, I give up. When I was in Toronto, I was actually able to get my cabs for medical appointments assisted for this reason, because my medically frail daughters needed to get places that the TTC was just not reliable for me. And again, hold on, here comes my baby. I have an invisible head. He is just appearing out of nowhere.
He's so cute.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say real quick, I drive now, but I feel your pain on the subway. So for me, I used to work downtown in a restaurant and I used to go home like 4 or 5 o'clock at night, whenever. And I would always bring food with me because why am I going to pay for food when I can get food at where I was working for free? The problem is I'm hungry as soon as I'm done work. I usually eat on the subway. But if there's too many people, I can't eat because they're breathing everywhere. I didn't like that. So I would close the food and then I would get hot because my blood pressure starting to rise. I'm starting to get pissed off. And it either calms down because we'll get far enough where we reach a stop where most people are getting off, or like you, I have to get off the train. I don't leave the station, but I got to get off the train.
Yeah, so this is, you see, and then think about especially with women, and if you've already experienced certain levels of violence or trauma, and then you're being forced just to go to work, and every morning you have to think about, am I going to get into an interaction with with a male that's going to, it just, right now on this, the subway right now, I want to be really real on the show. You guys can crop out some of it, but what they're I don't want to say it, but I have to say it because it's my true feeling.
Hold on. Well,
so before
what the city has done. Hold on. Before you do, I learned, I had an interview once with a guy and he said, you know what? It's podcasting. It just happens. So we're not going to crop anything out. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay,
whatever happens, her child got in the frame. It's fine. It's podcasting. It happens.
Okay.
Well, he's here. But
so go on. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it. And if you guys think I'm wrong, please correct me. I am willing to. Okay, I think that the TTC subway, the way that the TTC is operating and the way the city is operating it is they're turning it into a free strip club for men. Straight up.
I see
so
your
that
point.
If they don't want to pay for a strip club, they actually come on the TTC to harass women and touch women and use the fact that there's other I got pushed into you because the TTC braked too hard to touch women. This is where I'm headed with I need the women only compartment because we're not a strip club. Like, we're not going, like, then there's the polls and everything. Like, when you start to think about it on the sickness of it, no. But that is like, there are men coming on the subway just to touch women.
Oh yeah,
like, come on, people.
Where I'm on a streetcar and then we're absolutely jam packed. And I mean, we're all standing as conditions. I'm holding onto a pole up there. And yeah, there's a pole over him to be grabbing for. You don't have to try and grab my handrail. But this guy's pressed up against me. He's like breathing down my neck, right? And he's like rubbing against me, like more than necessary. Like, we're going to come to a break. I'm trying to brace myself. Man's full on leaning on me. And the guy's in the front so that when the brakes go, my boobs hit their back. Like, get out of my space. It's not necessary. And then when I was traveling,
I'm so sorry. I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry.
I want to punch somebody. Like, ugh.
I used to travel with my headphones on, but no music, because I have the headphones on because I want people to think that I'm listening to music and to ignore me. But I never had the music in or on because I need to listen to my surroundings. So I'm trying to look unapproachable while being hyper vigilant, head on a swivel, never like leaves an open space behind me. I'm with my stroller. I always used to sit like with my back to two walls, or like wait, not on the platform, but inside the station when I could. And that would mean I had to start booking it across the platform when I saw the bus show up. But I'd rather be inside where the driver is than be out there, because women get accosted waiting for the bus at these terminals, at the outside bus stations. And then on these, the long train station platforms, they have that long end that it says waiting area, and there's a little light that comes on, but that's the furthest you are away from the exit. It's supposed to be the other side of the train because they want it to be, equally loaded. But that is the most dangerous place to wait, especially late at night when the train's only coming every 20 minutes. You watch, as a man, you watch a woman go down the stairs, she's going to be headed off to the subway. You follow her. That's it. It's really uncomfortable situation to be in. When I had to travel late at night with my small daughters, like when I was by myself, didn't think too much about it. But then as a mother, thinking how much of a target I would be just so that someone would take my small children, terrified me so much.
See, this I'm sorry this has happened to you. Okay, this should not happen to women in our city. This is unacceptable. It's unacceptable. So, and this is happening. And like, why is City Hall, like, how, like for years, like, I want to say like years, these types of, how do we say it? Like, it's
egregious acts. Oh no.
It's like a sickness, a disease that's like literally in every part of our functioning as a society. Like, this is beyond, no, that's what it is. It's kind of like, no, that's what it is. It's using the female bodies to cover up the failures of public policy at City Hall. They are using our female transit users to like cover it up. Otherwise, the transit system is like, it's like, for men, if the women were not on the transit at all, like just for example, and the transit was functioning as badly as it is, would there be more uproar? That's like what I'm trying to say is like, we're like subsidizing they're using the female bodies to subsidize their failure on the TTC. And this is like, these are some of the symptoms that you can see of it, is what I would like to say. And
Agreed.
Stop it.
Treatment on the TTC for sure. Vulnerable people, especially, I don't want to see young women have to deal with what I've had to deal with, for sure. I love that. What else?
And we just have,
feel like you could spit fire on absolutely any topic we give you.
I'd like to talk about crime to close it out. We've always had a high crime rate, and Scarborough, unfortunately, it gets tattooed with a bad reputation, whether it deserves it or not. And I'm interested to know your thoughts on that, what we can do better. And also, I'd love your opinion on the job the police are doing. I'll tell you specifically, and I don't mind calling them out because I've done it before. 22 Division, which operates in Etobicoke Lakeshore, is probably the worst division in Toronto. I know there are good cops there, but for the most part, it's a bad division. But I'd love to hear your thoughts about anything in Scarborough like. Go ahead.
Okay, so I talked to you guys about the MMA school. Okay, like I'll go, like it's on my platform. So when we talk about guns, I do believe that police officers should not carry guns. So I talked about it. I'll just read it, so it's a lot easier. I think nobody but our Canadian forces that protects our borders from invasion should carry any guns. This means that we should have police officers without guns on streets. Only special units should use guns that are part of guns, gangs, and SWAT type units. That means they get called in specifically for a gun related event. That's when gun related police come. But when I'm getting pulled over for a traffic ticket, I don't need a police officer with a gun coming to my door. Okay. There's no reason that every time, well, I wrote it. Let me just read it. There is no reason that every time we get pulled over for a traffic ticket, it needs to be an armed officer. Many city events do not need officers with guns. They just need officers. The constant existence of guns in our courts and patrolling our streets is normalizing guns as if it is okay to have guns ever. It is never okay, and further traumatizing people from a simple pullover, and it is known as a symbol of violence and oppression. I do not want this type of invention in this city anymore. I would prefer we make fist fighting legal between two consenting adults and ban handguns instead from police. So I know like the fist fighting legal to consenting adults, that might be pushing it. But the reality is that there is no reason at all that anyone needs to use guns to solve any problems in the city. And then when we ban it from police officers, that's when the police can come in and say, put in stronger laws for people who do use guns. So then if we do catch you using a gun, oh yeah, you're going away for life, no parole, no bail. You know, put in those type of strict things, but first get rid of it from the police too. Because when the cops are walking around, even the communities with guns, why do you have a gun? Like people are seeing that gun and it's doing things to their heads where it's now like, oh, am I so unsafe in this area that someone needs to carry a gun around me? No.
I gotta say, you know, maybe it's a good thing that Paul Ainsley didn't show up, because you're throwing live rounds here. I love it. And I'm just
can I say it?
I'm blown away. Yeah, I'd love to say it. Go ahead.
So all of these things, you know, when you're saying it's all on point, it is based. I did 1 year. I did my thesis. It's a new socioeconomic wealth creation model, and from my thesis, I created practical solutions. Okay, and this has been going on for over 6 years. But just a couple months ago, this woman, she did it to. She was very upset that I'm changing systems. You know, I love workers. I love my workers. Okay, I will fight for the workers. They are the real people that keep my city running, and I will fight for them till the end. Okay, and so when I fight for workers, the bosses and especially managers that are profiting off of low incomes, they hate it. They hate it so much. So she told me, she goes, "You're a revolution without ammunition." And she thinks I'm getting insulted. I'm not getting insulted. I'm like, shots fired. I'm not even shooting and shots are getting fired. And it's a revolution without ammunition. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I'm smart enough to take over the world without killing anybody. The other people, they had to kill people to take over the world. And you know what? You know when he said the utopia? Like the queen is dead. She is dead. Her system, her monarchy is going away. Thank you. Yes, you know, I read this post from an indigenous person, and it said, there is no pride in genocide. There is no reason to be prideful about this queen. Okay, so no, she is gone. Her system is gone. Her monarch, that entire thing, it's going. So what's coming in? You know, what's coming in? A revolution without ammunition. I'm not asking for people to pick up guns. No, but do I want change? Yes. Do I know how to get it done without fighting, without guns, without corruption? Yes. So let's do it. And yeah, no, you know, I met him at that town hall. I'm very good with energies. Like, you see Ebony, she has this type of energy. You're very educated, Ebony. You're a very educated, intelligent woman.
You should have seen her hair yesterday. It was purple. I loved it.
Well, like, if you're working with me, like, you know, like if I win city councilor and you have someone like you is on my team, like, then these things are even more going to happen than just me by myself. You understand? Like, it is like, these are like, you are the people, like even you, Matthew, like you guys are the people that are actually willing to speak the truth before it's cool to do it. Like, once we get the Khabib fight school, everyone's going to be down with it. Like, everyone's going to be like, oh my God, yeah, we're Scarborough, we got Khabib, etc. But before it even happens, like, there's only so many voices that are willing to speak up about these things and then make it happen. Like, you can't even imagine it.
Here's the thing about that. Here's the thing about that. I speak my mind because, one, it's the right thing to do. And two, I'm not owned by anybody. I own this podcast. I run it with Ebony. I don't owe anybody anything. I'm my own man, and I'll say what I want. And sometimes people are going to like it and maybe even love it. And sometimes people are going to hate it. But the one thing you can never accuse me of is being a liar, because I'm going to say, yeah, and when I'm wrong, I'll eat it. and I'll say it. You can ask my wife. I say it all the time. I'm like, I'm probably wrong on that one, and I'll eat that. No problem.
And I'll do the same thing. I'll do the same thing. Like I will. But like one more point. So about not taking money. So I don't want the taxpayers' money. I'll be straight up. I believe that the next 4 years, that's 400,000 that can go straight into my community. So instead of taking my salary and pocketing it, there's so many, like I said, my grandma died. She's an innocent person. To me, lives are in danger in Scarborough right now. Like lives are in danger. There is no reason for me to take taxpayer money. That money needs to go back into my community. It's going to be part of the fund. Like, so some of these,
I just want to, is that part of your platform? Because if it's not, it should be. Oh, okay. Go on.
No, it's part of my platform.
Okay,
it's
go on.
Part of my platform. I've been posting it on Kijiji. So one of the things that I would be doing with that money is opening up a 24/7 office. So my city councilor office will be open 24/7 because residents, we are like, instead of 311, you come to my office, you get evicted at 7 o'clock at night, you don't know what to do, you come to my office. And not just is it going to be 24/7 office, it'll have mobile component. So for our seniors, for our single mothers who cannot come to my office, we will have a mobile office, a vehicle that will not take me to you. And then, I'll do shift work. So like sometimes I'll do night shift, sometimes I'll do day shift. Same idea. And I'll have an additional, like the 100,000 salary is going to allow me to have a part-time staff member to do the other shift as well. And then when it's a serious emergency and you need the city councilor, I'll show up. So like that money can actually, and then, that way, because sometimes, even a shelter, you need to go to a shelter. Before you go to the shelter, you have to call the shelter. Where are you calling the shelter from? From a mall? Where are you calling from? A bus stop? Come to the city councilor office. If I have to come pick you up with your stuff and you're going to a shelter and you got 2 bags of stuff to take with you, I'll come pick you up, bring you to my office, give you a cup of coffee, sit you down. Let's figure out the best place to get you to. Because sometimes when you call the shelter and then, they're sending you to a shelter 2 hours away, you got to get on the TTC. They give you 2 hours to show up or your bed gets lost, all sorts of things. So like the 2 main things I need to deal with right away, and I talk about like the most vulnerable is the hunger, the child hunger, okay? And then where do my residents sleep at night? If you're sleeping on the street that night, that can't happen. If I'm your city councilor, that's not happening. So you're coming to my office. And so that's just, and then, even the workers in Scarborough, some of them work during nighttime. And so during the day is when they're sleeping. So for them to deal with some of the council related issues, and sometimes it takes an hour, 2 hours to get these things done. Okay, you need to have night office hours as well, especially for a community where so many of your community members are low skilled workers that are working in, 24-hour jobs at Tim Hortons, and different things. So I'm not saying everybody's like that. But my office has to be inclusive to everybody.
And I'd love to hear what Ebony has to say, but I just had one more question quickly. Because I'm aware of the time, I'd love to get your quick opinion on the fact that we talked about this, I think, off air, that Pickering does not have a hospital. So all the residents of Pickering, if they're not going to Ajax, they're coming to Scarborough to use the hospitals. I'm just wondering, I'd love to know your thoughts on that in terms of, the effect it has on Scarborough, and anything else you want to say.
Yeah, so when I didn't realize, I knew Scarborough, the hospital. Okay, so Scarborough Hospital, number one, is already so underfunded that they got the $75 million because they're so underfunded. They didn't get the 75 million because those guys wanted to give it to Scarborough. It's just like, that's so underfunded, like that had to be done. And then 25 million of it goes to University of Toronto, which I think is actually, that's a little bit of a, it's money that was designated for the Scarborough community now going to the University of Toronto, investing in a University of Toronto, and then the people that profit off of University of Toronto profiting off of that. So that's another story. But what you're saying there, like the only thing we can do is look at the metrics. So like the amount of emergency rooms of Pickering residents, like you can look at addresses of how many Pickering addresses were registered at the Scarborough Hospital. And then let's say it's 25% of Pickering residents are the users at Scarborough Hospital, then yes, Scarborough should now either get money from Pickering, or the Ontario government has to now cover the cost of not having the hospital in Pickering by giving that money now into Scarborough. And it doesn't necessarily have to be directly to the hospital. It can be to health-related organizations like what you're doing. Yes. And but that one is going to have to be a real, like, we're going to have to go into the hospital and make a program where they have to give us the data, and it'll give us, like, we'll take 1 year of data to analyze it. And then in the second year, we can put in the program. But yeah,
Like-
what it is, that's called a health inequality. And then like, there's this man named Dr. Andrew Buzari, and he keeps talking about how health inequalities are like they're like killing people. And he keeps talking about how it's like one of the biggest reasons for death is not like different sicknesses and diseases, is health inequality.
Oh my goodness. Being like a BIPOC female is literally a death sentence in today's medical economy. I was just talking to Matt about this the other day. The fact that, as you see, my pale child here, he's very white passing. That child is 1/6 Nigerian, but you would not guess. And he actually receives better health care than my daughters, who are a little bit more brown. Case in point, all 3 of my kids have been horribly sick for about 2 weeks. My girls got better, you know, it's been 2 weeks. I would have liked to have seen them have antibiotics. They're 5. They probably could have handled antibiotics. I understand you don't want to give children under the age of 5 many, but I had to fight tooth and nail to get my boy seen, like, and taken seriously. I took him in and they're like, yeah, he's fine. Bring him back if he's not better in a few more days. I'm like, can we get him on something, please? He's like throwing up. He's not keeping his food down. And I'm also worried at the same time about my child being medically kidnapped. You know, it's all fine until they go, well, you know what? He is malnourished. And you know what? He isn't eating, and we are, you know, concerned about his health. And then they just take him from you. So I'm like, white husband, please take the child, right? With your superior health benefits. And guess what? He gets seen the same day, and he gets antibiotics for the child. And so if I've, you know, my daughter put her thumb in a cookie presser or whatever, like one of those little plastic cutters, couldn't get her thumb back out. I said to my husband, you know what? Like, I'm ready to go, but I'd prefer if you take her because I know you're going to get treated better in the ER. And it's true. He goes, they get seen. They're all, oh, you're such a good dad. No questions about where the other children are, etc. When I go to the hospital, they want to ask me, who else is in the home with you? You know, are there any males in the house? What do you do for a living? How do you support your family? And it's a bunch of questions because they just want I want to ask the doctor, why are you quizzing me these questions when it's my child who you should be asking me questions about, not me? They say, oh, I just want the larger socioeconomic picture. But my white husband never has these questions asked of him. And I would tell you the amount of Black women I've spoken to that have been dismissed because of their, you know, had their pain gaslit, been told that they didn't need medication or treatment and just been discharged is enormous. I take a body cam with myself because I've had to confront doctors, be like, why can't I have that ultrasound? Why it doesn't cost anything to you, right? So I need you to print for me, I feel like, you know, for my own records and files, that you're dismissing me and that you're denying me treatment and your reasoning why. And I just have to keep advocating for myself, especially since COVID and they've stopped you being from like allowing you to bring somebody in the hospital with you. It's actually tragic the amount of women, BIPOC or, you know, colored people who have been misdiagnosed, mistreated, or like have only been now diagnosed in their 30s because they've been dismissed in their entire 20s.
Yes. This, what you're talking about, this is the one that's the most painful, because when you go to the hospital, you're already vulnerable, you're already sick, you need help. So why now the systemic barriers that are being put in place? Like, that's very painful. I'm very sorry you're experiencing this right now in the city. I'm very sorry about this. Like, when I go there, I know what you're talking about, the pain, where you tell them, like, they'll ask you from 1 to 10, what's your pain level? And I'll be like 10. They're like, are you sure it's 10?
Yeah.
Am I sure it's 10? Like I'm telling you, this is the worst pain I've experienced in my life. Like, so these types of things, it becomes like, that's when I start to get, you know, like, my mom says, don't get emotional, but like, yeah, that, like, when you tell a like, no, like, that's when, okay. So, you know, when you talk about this, like, you know, when you have to advocate for yourself, like, you even know how to advocate for yourself. There's so many women, they don't even know how to advocate for something. But there's one thing we can do about this, okay? And like, okay, for example, Scarborough, there's some doctors, they are not good doctors. They are not good doctors at all. And so what I was thinking this about police officers too, even when you said 22 division, and even parking police officers for their racism too. Okay, so instead of just me, like right now, a parking officer, I did not leave my vehicle. I was eating McDonald's, okay? There is a receipt from McDonald's at 10:42. And then at 10:49, he gives me a ticket, and it literally takes me 3 minutes to even drive over to that parking lot. I never even got out of my car yet. He said I was parked. I never even got out of my car. It was less than 3 minutes. I was just finishing up my sandwich. He came behind my car and he put a ticket down. And then he was just so surprised when I got out of the car and I spoke English. And he's just looking at me and he's like, oh. And I'm just like, what's your name? And he wouldn't answer, et cetera, et cetera. So my point is, so on when I have the city councilor website, right, I'm going to have this like complaints page for police officers, doctors, healthcare professionals. And so instead of it just going to the complaint center, because then the complaint center never tells us that this officer received 10 complaints this year and they still didn't fire him. So at least whenever you file complaints, or even if you don't and you need me to help you file complaints, I'm going to do that. And then, this advocacy, that's when we can have that form already set up, easy to fill out, multiple languages. They can call me, my staff can help them fill it out. And then if one officer, now we get like 5 complaints from him in that next in 2 months about an unfair, like he's been going around giving unfair, those phone, like when you're holding the phone and like, people are getting some type of unfair tickets. There's a pattern. If I find a pattern with certain workers and they're abusing their power, then I will go and I will make sure they are fired. They are gone. And you know what? They're going to get taught.
Can I just interrupt for a second? I've been trying to talk about this the entire election. So the union is always going to back the police officer. It happens religiously. I don't know if you're familiar with James Fursillo, the officer who shot the kid on the streetcar in 2015, 2014.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was paid up until his very last appeal. So after conviction, you get, I think it's 2 appeal or whatever it is. Anyway, his last appeal, he was being paid up until then. Even though they say that he wasn't, he was. That is a fact. That is disgusting. That should not be. The second that you are under investigation, you should be suspended without pay. The problem lies in the contracts for the Toronto Police Service. I don't know how much you know about Rob Ford, but when he was the mayor and the city workers' contracts were coming up, he changed the language that existed in the contracts and took out the jobs for life clause. And I'm willing to bet there is a similar clause in the Toronto Police Services that says you have jobs for life. If you take that clause out and you put in a clause that is something in the nature of 3 strikes and you're out, depending on the severity of the complaints or the incidences, we can start firing these bad apple police officers. The police as a whole are great people. There are great officers. They really are. However, unfortunately, you always have bad apples. And then bad apples, they start to multiply sometimes. And that's where we are right now. And if we can hold these, that's why I don't believe in defunding the police. I understand that other people do, and I don't we may not agree, and that's fine. We can agree to disagree and still work together.
Yes.
But I believe that if you defund the police, you're not holding them accountable, because they're not going to fire the police. You have to change the language in the contract in order for them to fire the police. And that's the only way to hold them accountable, that says, oh, this guy got shot 3 times. Maybe I shouldn't tase him. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I'd love to hear what you have, what your thoughts on what I just said, and then we'll start to wrap it up, because we actually have a debate at 4:00. So okay. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, no, so to that, I'm gonna have to review the police contracts. Like, so this, you know what you're saying? Like, we actually have to, the city, so that's where a motion, I'm gonna have to pass a motion, and I'm gonna have to do that. And I see myself doing that.
Well, actually that happens. So every 3 or 4 years or whatever it is, the Toronto, they can't strike, but their contracts come up for renewal. So you have to go to the bargaining table, and that's when it would take place. You would do it during negotiations, change the language that exists within the contract. That's when it needs to happen.
Because there's no such thing as jobs for life. There's no such thing. If you're not capable and competent to do your job, you don't have a job.
And there's enough examples that you can cite, and James Fursillo is one of them. Anyway, sorry, to wrap up, you've blown my mind. You really have. I'm I got no.
Thank you for listening.
I got no words. I'm just.
Ebony, you could be my new best friend, though. I would really love that. I do love you.
Again, great.
I know. I already love you.
Right now, add me on Facebook. We'll talk on Messenger.
Okay.
I thank you so much for coming on here. You're such a breath of fresh air. You guys have had the same counselor for 16 years. It's time for a change. Nothing against Paul Ainsley. I don't hate him. He's probably a great person, but as a city councillor, he's way too comfortable to make the changes that the city of Toronto and Scarborough specifically needs. And thank you so much for coming on and doing this interview. And I wish you so much luck in your campaign trail. I can't wait to see what happens next. I'm excited for the city of Toronto. I'm excited for Ward 24 Scarborough, all of Scarborough, really. There are great candidates all over Scarborough in the different wards. And I hope that you can maybe link up with a few of them. And, let's honestly, personally, I would support a complete new rookie council, including the mayor next year. Okay. It's called learning on the job. We have tried the people who have been there and quote unquote know what they're doing for 8 years, some even longer. It doesn't work. So let's get a bunch of people who haven't been there before and see what happens. Let's just try it. Yes. I don't know. That's my thoughts.
There is a chance. There is a chance if Jill, the mayoral candidate that's closest in race to John Tory, the only way he would be able to do this is if he puts, like, remember I told you about that slate? It works. If he could put a slate together of all new faces for every single riding that he's endorsing, just like John Tory's making Team Tory. If Jill did that, there is a chance that then everyone will group like the old incumbents into one category, and then they'll group Jill's team into another. And it's possible that it could, there could be a flip, right? Like you always want to have a little bit of a hope that it's possible that, in the next 2 weeks, John Tory could do one more thing that's just going to make people be like, oh, no more, right? And then it's possible. But like you said, like, thank you. Like, I want to say to Paul, like, thank you for your service. Like, we don't need to, I was saying, like, we can be respectful about this. Thank you for your service, but not this year, Thank you for everything you've done for the community. And I'm going to take it from here.
Ebony, do you have anything to add?
Just that, like, yeah, breath of fresh air, or like the air leaving my lungs after I've been punched in the stomach. That's how I feel, like an exhalation of like exaltation. I am super thrilled that I was able to be here today and hear all this firsthand. I can't wait till you're a household name. I mean, I can't wait till your model ends up used all across Toronto, all across communities, all across Ontario. That the gym thing, if you don't freaking bring that to my city, I'll be upset. Like, I hope that goes so well that
Ebony's in Kitchener.
I had to leave. I got priced out. It was too dangerous in the West End for my kids. I was taking them to daycare at Trethaway at Jane there. And there was a shooting right there in the parking lot as I was dropping these kids off. So like we got back in the cab and we left. I remember seeing the shooters. I was horrified. Like they didn't go back to daycare after that. It was just too dangerous in the West End. But
that experience that should not happen to anybody. Like, that's a horrible experience. Like, I'm sorry. So you're a little bit far away. We're still gonna meet up, Kitchener.
Yeah. Habiba, before we go, why don't you plug your website and let people know how they can contact you if they have any questions, comments, or suggestions?
Yeah,
so my website is desaihabiba.com, DesaiHabiba. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Habiba Desai. And my phone number is 647-895-7934. So if you need a ride to go get to vote, or if you need any questions regarding voting, just give me a call. So 647-895-7934.
How about that? I love that. Guys, to my listeners, I just want to say voting day is October 24th. Early voting opens October 7th to the 14th. And I truly believe you need to get out and vote, because the only way to affect change is to be part of it. And for those listening who want a new mayor, I've heard of a hashtag, it's called hashtag evict John Tory. And if you guys are serious, get out and vote. Doesn't matter. Just get out and vote.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for coming on, doing this interview. I had fun. I know Ebony had fun, and I look forward to having you on the podcast after all this, all this election stuff is over. I look forward to having you on, whatever podcast we have, more than one. I'd love to hear any ideas you have, any business, because you sound like you have a lot of business sense. But yeah, I'm excited again, like I said, for the future of the city of Toronto and for Scarborough as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I
Okay.
hope I make you guys proud.
Awesome.
I'll say bye to your son too.